Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Huh? So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Hey, we want to shout out to our sponsors, Daytona Beach Comic Con. If you are a fan of comic books, if you're a fan of comic book conventions, and if you like meeting comic book creators and getting comics and comic-related stuff, then you need to make your plans to attend Daytona Beach Comic Con. This year's show is September 9th and 10th. Silverline will be there, so you should make your plans to be there too. We'll see you there. If you like comics and find yourself in the Orlando, Florida area, doesn't everyone come to Orlando at some point in time to see the House of Mouse? But when you're here, you need to make it a point to visit Coliseum of Comics, especially the one on East Colonial Drive. They carry Silverline comics, even a limited edition Coliseum of Comics version of our comics. So, when you go, be sure to ask for Silverline Comics and tell them we sent you. OCD stands for Orlando Collector Deviants. OCD, Steve and Trish, they're a family of geeks who promote geek things, particularly those around the Orlando, Florida area. They're big supporters of Silverline, and we think you should be supporters of theirs too. Go give them some love. If you are an independent comic book maker and you need to get your independent comics made, you need to look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our books, and they do a bang-up job. They're not only trusted by Silverline, but many, many independent comic book makers. Head on over to kablam.com and see for yourself just how easy it is to have your comic printed by them. And tell them Silverline sent you.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Barb Kilber, co-host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham. Join us each Wednesday nights as we discuss comics, literature, movies, and anything else that may catch our attention.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to That Silverline Show on Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim TK, and I'm joined, as always, by Cassisi Harris.
Hey, how's it going?
And David Rios.
How you doing?
And tonight we're going to be talking about all the things you need to consider when you make the decision to leap into comics. Jose is currently exhausted from spending several days in a row with family, so we're letting him go to sleep, which he never does, so he's probably catching up on several hours here. We'll be talking about the all things you consider when getting into comics. So it's going to be professional considerations, personal considerations, things you may not think about, as well as probably some of the more on the nose or straightforward things. And we're all here in different parts of our comics journey. So there'll be some considerations that will probably, become more apparent as you've aged into the industry, and other things that may be fresh in the mind as you're just starting out. So we'll hopefully cover all your bases. Don't think we have any housekeeping today, other than if you're listening on a podcast service, please leave us a review and share and comment with your friends. If you're watching live, please comment in the chat, and we'll get to your questions at the end of the show if they're not immediately present. Does anyone have any housekeeping themselves or anything they need to talk about?
Oh,
No
okay. Housekeeping.
Very good. Okay, so getting straight into it then. Base level housekeeping. If you're playing Helldivers, do the community objective. All right, we need battles. New battle pass comes out next week. Okay. The first thing that we should probably talk about is that not everyone's decision to go into comics or what their idea of what comics are is necessarily the same off the rip. All of us here probably have an age where growing up, we saw the single issue floppies around, and that's kind of what a comic was for us. Other people, for them, it's something more akin to a webcomic or maybe a manga, which now we do have Western manga publishers, so that is something you can look into doing. Other people, like what I prefer now is the straight to graphic novel market. So things like TKO or even Image Now will wait for you to have the graphic novel finished, and then they'll put it out as floppies. In some cases, depending on your standing with them. Usually, once you have like a full 6 issues when you're first starting out. Am I correct in that with you guys here that for us, our idea of a comic when we first got into it was the floppy, the 22 pages,
Yep. Oh yeah.
That being said, now, like I said, my reading habits have changed. So the way I prefer to write is I'll write all 6 issues at once, because that's the way I read comics now. I typically only read in graphic novel form or a manga volume. So I don't know if that's also changed for anyone else as, we grow older and our schedules get tighter, and I just want to have the full story in one go. I can't guarantee I'll make it to the shop every month.
No, I think I outline a lot, but I don't write that many things before I start working on something, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
I just go page by page. So
Yeah, that's right.
Page by page.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah, your job is kind of dependent on the writer's interpretation of how they create. Yeah, I mean, have you gotten any projects sent to you though, where imagine that for most part discount, if you get the document sent to you and it's the 22 pages, but have you gotten ones where you'll get 6 pages in a batch, or have you gotten someone sends you 40 pages in one go?
Well, I've had I'd have different things. When I was doing the stuff with Malibu, it was go in and get a page, and there's a whole bunch of colorists, and you could turn around and go to get your second page, and you're on page 2, and then the next thing you know, you're on page 21, and then you finish that and come back, and you're on a completely different book. So things were all across the board. The stuff that I've gotten from Roland is, here's a 4-issue, a 4-issue trade paperback, and here's 100 pages. Go for it. So just kind of the wide spectrum.
So prepared to work in both short bursts as well as long marathons. Okay.
Yeah,
because getting that single page for the independent creator now is probably going to be more akin to if they decided to go straight into working in webcomics. If you're an independent creator, you may only be working on, and you decide you want to work on webcomics as opposed to traditional print, you only be working on 6 panels at a time, and it's kind of your workload. Whereas if you decide to, I'm going to complete a graphic novel, I'm going to pitch it to TKO or to Image, that is going to be all right, you got 100 pages. Try to work on it when you can.
Yeah, when I was doing the inking stuff, that was varied on whenever the penciler got it. So you may get 1 page, or you may get a run of pages, and you just work through it and wait for the next pages and finish what you need to do. So,
absolutely, yeah. Okay. I guess also the other thing we need to talk about is when you get into comics, make sure you're getting into it for I don't say the right reasons, because it sounds like my head is all the way up my butt.
So many reasons, yeah.
Yeah, but for realistic reasons. If you're getting into comics with the idea of this is going to pay all your bills and allow you to buy a house in today's market, maybe reconsider.
or at least measure it, right? Meaning, I think a lot of people want instant gratification, or really short bursts. I'm good at something, and you have to understand it's just like everything else, right?
Yeah, they're going to be cutting your teeth. And comics are probably going to be cutting your teeth for longer than you would expect in other creative outlets.
For far less, right?
Yeah, the way the industry is now, yeah. But that was kind of a different story back in when David first got into it. But understand that this is not you're making your debut as an auteur director with film, right? This is you getting here because you have a passion project that you want to tell in this medium. So, what are some of the reasons why you guys got into working in comics? What are some reasons why you felt like this was the medium for you?
Go ahead, Dave.
No, go ahead.
I am one of those bad kids. I was not a comic fanatic, right? I was an 80s cartoon fanatic. So, things like Visionaries, G.I. Joe, Transformers, all those things. Sorry, all those things were like really, cat. All those things were really big to me, and I wanted to go into animation, right?
Okay.
And so, I started off on that route, but then when you think about the barrier to entry to animation, you're like, I still want to tell visual, stories, but I don't know if I'm at the point where I can enter into that and be gratified in the short term. So I said, okay, well, what's another visual medium that I like? Comics. So now you're starting to learn the intricacies of that, right? And how you tell stories in that world. And then it just, became something that I really liked. Like, oh man, this has its own set of challenges and how you express a power set and how you express things audibly, like, and so it just became a puzzle, a thing that I liked and I want to grow in. And it'll take some time, right? I'm still in the novice phases of doing it, but it's been fun so far for me. But.
Definitely.
I find it interesting that the very first thing that you mentioned was Visionaries.
You know what? It's so silly. I don't even think that people know what Visionaries are. Those are one of those little low budget cartoons.
And Knights of the Magical Realm.
Oh, I love them.
By what creeps, what crawls, by what does not, let all that grows recede and rot.
Yes, David,
I know what you're talking about.
So many points put up in the book. Yeah. That's why I love poetry today, I would think, is because of Visionaries as a kid. Them.
Sure.
Anyway.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but it's just kind of unique because automatically you see people and it's like Transformers, Thundercats, G.I. Joe, then you get some of the outliers like Mask, and some of those
Warriors, Pirates of Darkwater, all of
Lloyd's Kane Rise Up.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's just interesting to me that you came up with that. Well, for me, it's like I was also loving a lot of the animation stuff originally, and I loved the Robotech was one of my favorite.
Yeah.
And Macross, Mesopedia, all that stuff. And when and I've mentioned it before, but I didn't really get into comics until I saw that there was a Robotech comic out. And I didn't start the way a lot of people like Roland did, where they grew up in the Marvel years and the Kirby, all influence and all that. I was more, I wouldn't necessarily say truly independent with a lot of, when you think of truly independent, I think of Concrete, Flaming Carrot, stuff like that. But the multimedia stuff, the anime stuff, some of the Gundam and things like that. And I actually remember seeing, and it's quite ironic that it comes full circle, is with me, I remember seeing, the X-Men 251, I believe, that had Wolverine on the X, and I remember looking at it and going, I really don't like the way that these colors are with these dots and all of this stuff. But then at the same time, it's like I'm going in and I'm seeing Robotech, and that was on that was Comico, and they were known for very high quality coloring at the time, print paper, all this stuff. So my initial was through the cartoon side of it. But then I started to pick up, the independent superhero stuff like Mage and Elementals, Bill Willingham's Elementals and stuff like that, that Comico was producing, and I kind of grew out from there. So I like I said, I love the animation stuff that brought me into enjoying the comics. And then I started to go to college, and I was doing, ironically, mechanical engineering. There's a bus in the background somewhere.
Yeah, my phone on my desk.
But I was doing mechanical engineering, and it was interesting. And had I stuck with it, I would have done pretty well financially with that. That is a good industry. I have friends that were doing it with me. But one day I just got, I found that I really didn't care about the ionic bonds of materials and stuff like that. And I kind of said, well, what do you like to do? And I'm like, well, I like to draw the stuff. I like to create the images down on paper, the cut views. I like to do the lettering and all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm gonna, I like the art aspect of it. So I pretty much switched my major and almost doubled my amount of time in college. So I was starting over. Mm-hmm. And started doing that, and doing at the time it wasn't even graphic design, it was commercial art. But that ended up bringing me into liking to do this stuff like inking, and I was liking comics at the time. I hooked up with a local guy. It was a friend, and he was doing penciling. I was doing inking of stuff in our comic store and all that. It just slowly started to grow. And from there, and then eventually I got into the coloring aspect of it. And it's pretty much where I ended up here over time.
Nice. Very cool. I've talked about my story before, but I grew up with comics, getting the dad's collection, and then eventually being able to start my own collection with X-Force. But that kind of idea, like X-Force being my first introduction with the comics, coming from Age of Apocalypse into Age of Strife, and kind of my perception of comics. And then on the DC side, ended up picking up Green Lantern 4. And so my perception of comics is always, this is a medium where you want to tell like larger than life stories. And so I also end up, watching a lot of anime, watching a lot of cartoons, becoming a huge like Gundam kid, as well as in the typical shonen stuff that was on like Cartoon Network and back when Sci-Fi Channel ran anime. It's like Bleach, Robotech, all that good stuff. So like I always end up loving like these insanely involved, extreme, over the top types of stories that had a lot of visual impact, and then seeing the similarities there in the comics that I ended up picking up. And now my taste has evolved, and I do also like your literary and slice of life comics. But for me, it's still like the more trying to think of a PG-13 way of saying this, but bat crap crazy type of story you can tell with a comic. That's what I want to do. Like I want to do something that is completely impossible in any other media, essentially. Mostly for budgetary reasons, because animation and film is expensive, but in comics, page rate is a little less. That being said, you still want to be thoughtful and not give your illustrators carpal tunnel. But when I am going through college, and similar to David, in engineering, I started out going for the school for computer science. I was going to end up working like in a systems technology job somewhere, and then quickly realizing how much I liked technology but hated the required math involved. Discrete math can go die. But at that point, I was looking at other majors available, and ended up realizing like a bunch of my optional credits and everything like were very English focused, and a lot of my stuff I did in high school that was like AP stuff was also very English focused. So I had a lot of transfer credits for an English or creative writing degree, and then I just kind of stumbled my way through different career programs available or degree programs available to me until I found the one that Full Sail and saw that they had stuff specifically for writing comics, which no other creative writing or English program I had available. And the other ones that did have comic writing were really like a day class taken at like your local community college, not like an actual like accredited thing. And so that's kind of what I'm doing, and then kind of use that as an opportunity to confirm my love for the medium and what I wanted to do with it. Write some really weird stuff in school, and then coming afterwards. And then start writing comics and getting them published myself. So it worked out. But yeah, it's just the idea of like I love the medium allows you to do as far as including as many weird and wacky elements as you want. So we talked about different types of comics, so I might get into that. Let's talk a little bit about the landscape of the industry as it stands today. Yeah, definitely. For the type of storytelling that I want, like that's what comics do offer for me. Thank you. Old Dirty Fighting chat said, I don't know what you have grown to believe that more that comic stories can do storytelling in a singular and superior way. And yeah, I've heard that. Type of storytelling that I like doing, that's kind of what I agree with. So the landscape of comics has changed drastically even within the last 10, 20, 30 years. It seems like it's continually shifting and getting different focus. Now everything seems to be a lot of direct to market independent type stuff. So either Kickstarter comics or comics done through any one of the e-publisher systems, or even print on demand systems that now just go straight to any sort of provider. Comixology has a really interesting independent creator program where you literally just similar to something like Image, where you just pitch Comixology and then you immediately get set up with a direct to market release plan. 10 years ago, there's like this weird push from the big two. Not weird push, it made sense, but a big push from the big two on going all digital, and everyone had their own marketplace, which we seem to be going back and forth on if you want one marketplace or multiple marketplaces that are digital only. And then 30 years ago was a different story. I was thinking in the 90s is very much the ending of the newspaper reel, but still the birth of the local friendly comic book shop. Go in, grab your monthly floppies, and at the same time, probably pick up a Warhammer mini or something, so they all seem to be congregated in the same area. And because of that, the career avenues have changed. So the same career advice that someone would have given David when he first got into it didn't apply when I got into it, and didn't apply when Kasisi got into comics. There's still like some golden rules that we'll probably end up covering about like just your professional behavior in comics, things like that. But as far as the actual like who you need to talk to, what you need to pitch, what you need to have prepared, that has all changed. So with the current market situation and the way things are saturated and how distribution models have shifted, actually let's go back historically. So getting first into industry for you, David, that was 5 years ago. What was that like for you? Because at that time you had the big two were bigger, and the avenues of getting in with them or an imprint, I'm sure looked much different than they do today.
Oh yeah, they're definitely quite a bit different there. Everything was all, we sent in submissions, we went to conventions, tried to show portfolios. Yeah, I had quite a few rejection letters. Definitely from the big two, that's for sure. But it seemed like a lot of it also had to do with who you knew and what kind of connections. You tended to get a little bit more of a second look if you knew some people, and but it was also even that didn't work. Some things fell through. I remember I had to get into the Malibu Marvel. It was a lot of hard work every day, just continually reminding people I'm there, and always practicing, trying to do more stuff, and seeing where things were when you found out that they weren't looking right now. That wasn't the time to just keep bothering them, because all you're going to do is basically tick people off. So just biding your time, putting in your time on other things, whatever your day job was at the time, and waiting for the next opportunity to come up. But then I know also when they disbanded Malibu, that I had some names of some people, some things that I did. I went and did some tryout stuff for Wildstorm, drove from LA down to San Diego, and with the intent of, if I get hired, I'm moving out here. But also had some contact names for somebody at Top Cow, but that ended up, I could never actually, I don't know what happened with that contact. That kind of didn't work out. But there was a lot of people that I work with that ended up going into different. Quite a few of them went into Top Cow. A lot of them went into animation. I knew people that went straight to Disney, worked on some Disney products. I know people that ended up going over to Batman the Animated Series, which I would have loved. Nice. Love to do that.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of just concentrate. Try and make any connections you can, improve your work, put your stuff out there, and see where things go. Go to the show people, take any constructive criticism, and try to incorporate that and improve. So,
and you had something said there, which something seems like a universal truth, kind of no matter what industry, no matter what age, is it's a lot of it is who you know. I think everyone I know that is in any corporate job I've had, everyone I know has been hired based on someone else's recommendation. And in a lot of creative work too, that is how you get into the editor's desk, is knowing someone who's worked with the editor and knowing the editor, so they're willing to put your name to the top of the stack, or even let it bypass their submission editors. And kind of one of the major differences there is that now, especially for the big two, but even for a lot of other companies, submissions are no longer really a thing. A lot of it is invitation only. Competitions, like a lot of companies will do an annual competition where they'll have, writers submit a script, artists submit panels, and they'll select like the top 3 from each to work on the book that year. and then hopefully you can then leverage that to then get invitations from another company or place yourself in something else. There are places that do accept submissions, Image to an extent.
But you have to come with your whole team, though.
You need the whole team, so you need to have a completed book. So either as a writer, you've already paid the artist to do everything, and they've sold you the pages, so you have a complete six issue trade to give the Image, or you and the artist have worked together to create the full 6 issues and have come to an agreement saying that, when Image takes this to market, this is how you split the proceeds. Which, if you're the other thing that you consider when you get into comics is if you're a writer, you also, everyone is their own business agent unless you also work in traditional publishing, in which case your agent may follow you over. But for the most part, you are creating contracts, negotiating them. Writers are, you're lucky if you give yourself 15% of your book. But that's the shtick of it. Is you are, if you're a writer and you don't have some 1,000 saved up, you have to learn how to write the contract that is binding to you, mostly saying that you will pay the artist this much when the book goes to market.
Yeah, you want a good parallel? Here's a good parallel for the gamers in you. You are being the writer. You are the bard trying to build your party, and you have to turn around and buy your tank and your healer. So anything that obviously you're the ones that are kind of driving this, and and it's like you just look at what are the big things in demand going forward. Now there are exceptions to that. Pretty much Grant Morrison, for example, write his own write his own ticket. There's a lot of Alan Moore as well. It's like you got a lot of big writers, but for people starting out, there's a really hard push, and it is kind of like I said, attributed similar to your gaming thing, where you're the bard trying to build the party, to bring the end result, bring the raid on, but it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of things you need to maybe sacrifice for it, and I'm a colorist. I'm not in demand like the pencilers are, or and the inkers, I'm just another cog in the wheel.
As an old dirty fatty in the chat said, I ran Marvel's submission department for a summer, and I learned that as good as the current pros are, they could all be replaced in a second by even more talented people. And that's true for the pros. So especially if it's like your first summer jumping into creating comics, understand how competitive the field is. You may have the best Green Arrow pitch that anyone has ever seen. DC doesn't care. They're trying to get Neil Gaiman back to do another run of Sandman. So everything is, and especially now, everything is as hyper competitive. So learning how to use online aggregators are going to be your best friend, because you don't necessarily have submission agents the way that traditional publishing might do, where it'd be a matter of, as a writer, you find an agent who works with you for 5%, and then you just send them stuff, and then they pitch it for you. It's a matter of you having to find whoever is currently running competitions, whoever in the indie scene is accepting scripts, if you're lucky. Or more than likely, you have to find a writer who's willing to work on collaboration with you. And then again, you need to know how to write the contract that binds you, because artists don't work for free. And things like duotrope, understanding the comic collaboration and the comic submissions subreddits and how the tags work on there. Those are very important tools right now, actually. A lot of comics now that have come through on Comixology Unlimited, their partner program have come through teams made on the comic collaboration subreddit, which is interesting. So learning how to navigate those spaces to find who's accepting and where to find those work boards in the current era is going to be kind of your new skill set that you're doing. Not necessarily going to cons as much. Sometimes editors will be in the area for a con to look at stuff, but for last time, you're going to find a panel where an artist is giving feedback, but they may not be a hiring artist. They may just be there to do a professional courtesy to people paying to go to the convention space.
Mm-hmm.
So, understanding that now we're in the age of make the book first to get paid for it later. It kind of sucks, but I mean, we're in this because we love the medium, not because we're trying to get paid.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One of the things that, I always like to go and see some of the panels when I go to conventions. And one of the things that I see with Dave Olbrich when he does his is a lot of times he'll reference and he'll show, he'll talk about, the competition, and he'll show a slide that has, it's like, oh, you trying to get in to a medium, and then here's a line that goes all the way out and curves around and curves around and curves around and curves around, and it's like, okay, and here's your competition trying to fill that same job that you're doing. So that's one aspect. Like you said, it is very very difficult. There's a lot of people vying for, a lot of talented people out there trying for the limited spaces. The other thing is that I remember was back back in the 90s, all this stuff, you had a lot of the things, had the big studios. And the thing I remember about Image was the studios were filled with a lot of artists that were striving to, the Jim Lee studio had a lot of artists that were trying to draw like Jim Lee. The Liefeld had artists drawing like that. So you had a lot of that. And I see a lot of the people that were there at the time, and I see a lot of the branch now where they're doing stuff that's completely different. And, but back then it was like, these are the popular people, if you want to get into the popular thing, you got to look like, the popular people's work. But one of the things that I always remember hearing is if, why would I want to hire somebody who draws like Jim Lee when I could hire Jim Lee to draw like Jim Lee, or whoever it is, So a big thing is kind of work on developing your style and what you can put, and you get a lot of things. Like one that's really hot right now is Peach Momoko, and she's got a pretty unique style. I mean, it is that traditional Japanese type look, but that's one thing that she's got is she's kind of bringing a fresh face on things. So look at what you can do to make your own unique style and make somebody go, hey, I want that. I haven't seen that before. So,
and also, I think another thing, and I'm hoping that this becomes a bigger thing now, and I kind of touched on it earlier, is that I don't think that people let themselves become good at it. I mean, if you were trying to get into some sort of combative sport, right? Day one, I think a lot of people go into it thinking that their idea is so great, right, that they're just gonna have this really sharp trajectory into something good. Whether that's people buy your idea or everybody's gonna buy your comic type deal, and they don't respect the growing in the craft and know that takes time. So when you enter, I mean, you may be talented, you may have great ideas and just not even understand how to express them. And even if you did you consider how many words you can have on a panel? Like all the crafty stuff that goes into it. Yeah. I think, if you go into it humble, just realizing, man, there's a lot to learn, and I am just getting in there learning how to jab right now. And then eventually I'll gain stamina and I'll be good enough to be in the ring. so that I can compete, even compete when it comes to competitions or submitting stuff, right? I think, people just need to be kind of sober minded and humble and enjoy the process of getting better, realizing that you may go 12 years, before you're ever even able to compete, like with people for something. So,
yeah. I mean, that's the steal your analogy. I find this similar issue with writers in particular, where for their first pitch, they hide on to what they think is their magnum opus. They don't want that to be their first pitch. They want to save that for later on. So, and, I've already made it, and it's for sure going to go to a big publisher. And no, because if you're selling something that is subpar to compare to what you can do, then the editor is going to see that as being a subpar submission. Somewhere like if you're fighting, you're not going to go to your first fight night holding back.
Right. Saving that one.
Exactly. Yeah. Your time writing that fantastic story that you have in you, that's your training and your sparring. Like that's where you may not be exhausting yourself, right? Like pacing and writing sessions. Your first pitch is going to be your first fight night. You're going out there hoping to win and not get your teeth kicked in. So,
but you're probably going to get your teeth kicked.
Yeah, absolutely. So like you need to put your best foot forward and like present your very best work, because otherwise, it's not just your teeth going in. Like, you're getting caved. Someone's going to break your orbital socket and you're going to retire because you got so beat down.
Yep. Yeah.
And always remember that even the best people out there have redone their work, because you go and think of with an artist, you think of, oh well, that's such a classic cover or whatever, your Neil Adams or your Stranko or whatever, and then you come to realize that, oh well, here's the alternate cover that wasn't used, and you're like, wow, that was the first iteration. So a lot of people tend to want to just go through and, well, I want to do it, and I'll do it my way. You got your opinion, but a lot of times the finished result ends up being a collaboration, and being willing to, even if you have to, scrap and restart. So.
Kind of intending on a lot different of my pre-existing notes here. We're kind of circling around now, but it's something that has not necessarily changed, gotten more or less important with the change in industry, but the way it looks now has changed. As the building a great portfolio. That's kind of what we're talking about. Building a great set of works on your first pitch. For both as a writer and an artist. Portfolios typically have more prevalence for artists in comics, but as a writer, you should have one as well. At least a body of work. It may not be a completed body of work or published body of work, but it is a body of work that you can say, I've completed these many stories in this time. So you can trust me to complete another story for you. Kind of we're talking about, not holding back on your creative work, taking time to hone and develop it and do revisions on it. As what's mostly changed is where your portfolio is going to be housed now, because often now the case is going to be a digital portfolio. It's no longer several loose pages you carry with you in the middle of a folder to a convention. Now, usually if you find an editor or something at a bar or something after a con, they usually just want you to give them their business. You give them your business card so they can look up your website and see what you have. I'm sure our portfolios are all different places now, given where we are in the industry. So I kind of want to get an idea from you guys on what you have done to either showcase your portfolio, or what you're working on doing now to increase your portfolio, build it.
I think Cece and I have both said we're not really good at promoting ourselves.
Not at all. But this is the year I'm going to learn, though. I will say, I went into this knowing that I would have to do a whole bunch of bad pages, right? before I ever got to a good page. And so my plan was to get like several first issues out, right? And then when you get those several first issues, now you start to build and shape that portfolio in such a creative way that you ask people, okay, here are the 5, here are the 12 stories, help me pick the 3 that I'm going to start crafting a future in. So that's kind of where I am right now. I bought my name as a domain that I have not even worked on in a long time, right? But the plan is to use that and then to pitch this stuff to folks who read it just casually to understand what catches people attention and what should I kind of focus on, at least for phase 2 of it. So
there you go.
And I'll learn all the other stuff like how to use Instagram and all the stuff I don't want.
Instagram as a writer is tricky. I find that having another creative outlet that you can then partner in with Instagram does well. It's like mine is mostly for my painting, because that gets the most traction, because miniature painting is such a weird niche skill that ends up getting its own audience that then people will cross-pollinate and like, oh, this person also has comics out there, or this person also has a short story that you can go read. And
I will always pair my stuff with visuals from an artist, though. That's kind of the angle that I won't just, I'll have another thing that will be works of art that are not comics that are written.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I'm just concentrating on the comics, and those will always be paired with artwork.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I would always bring my small little, portfolio with me, just stick in my backpack and bring it out and let people look at it as I went and talked to them. Oddly enough, last year when I went to San Diego, I brought my iPad because I had something digitalized on there, so nice. I showed some stuff on that. But yeah, I definitely am not a good example of posting things. I've talked with you about this, Tim, before. I've had a domain name for 10 years.
Oh, that's so good.
And it's still sitting on the default page. So
yeah.
I know that page so well. It's so
yeah. I've had I find that writer sites are in a weird place because I have a crappy Wix site that I haven't updated in a while. I'll just kind of throw a link in it whenever I do a publication, but I don't really do anything to update it. But I think my current system, which is everything either links out from my Instagram or my Twitch. So if you find me through Twitch or TikTok, then you just have a link right there to go buy my comics on my storefront. But I haven't included my short stories in there yet because they're scattered all over the place. So I think what I'll be doing is actually looking at taking the note from the Internet Accountant's playbook and building a link tree. Just like which if you're not familiar with, essentially it's a third-party site that just serves to host a collection of links in a mobile-friendly format. So if someone from Instagram or Twitch or whoever clicks on that, it's just a wall of links that they'll click on. And then from there, I can just have short stories listed or link out to my storefront or thing like that. So it kind of negates the need for a writer site. I don't know how that'll play. I think it's something that'll be interesting experimenting with. But and you can, depending on where your stuff is hosted, I have some short stories that are hosted for free, which is my portfolio. So that way then I can just essentially link up from there to my portfolio samples in that same place that also links up to my storefront. So that way you can kind of get the full breadth of my work and the fact that I'm currently working and paid writer.
Paid, what's that?
Yeah, right. It's not enough to pay the bills, but we get still taco for lunch.
There you go.
Yeah. subscribe to my Twitch. I have cat bills that need to be paid at the vet, so donate to my Twitch.
And just
watching right now, go twitch.tv/TimTKWriter.
And just remember, we are willing to take sponsorship from Del Taco.
Yeah, if you're a CMO working at Del Taco, let me know. I was on LinkedIn. Okay. We kind of hit a lot of different things here. We do have a question from chat. Aldrich Fanny, how I think AI will change the landscape. I think right now the public perception is not a place where it'll be really welcomed in. I see it as a productivity tool, but not as an creation tool. I'm open about the fact that I still write out the show notes for the show, but I use a chat bot to organize it in a way that is a little less ADHD frenzied. Actually give some structure to it. But AI creativity is, for writing in particular, is not a place where I would even use it in my day job as a marketer. I might use it for one-off emails if it's just like a quick thing, but writing is over there. Art is interesting because I think it has its place in creating memes and funny content, but we're into a point where some people want to pay artists to do art, so I don't think AI art will truly replace an AI. It will truly replace an actual artist because there is a certain creativity and soul that it lacks. It's really good at replicating styles, but it can't create an original style.
I think that's what I've been kind of thinking about while you've been talking. That's exactly it. It's big thing, at least now, unless some technology changes, is taking what's out there and modifying it and putting pieces together of what's there, not as much creating, putting pencil to paper type thing. So a lot of the stuff that's being generated by it is stuff that an artist has already done and pulled in. And I think that's what a lot of the issues with the art industry has is most of the time there's no recognition, there's no pay for the work that they've done. Mm-hmm. It's kind of I don't want to say it's like kind of stealing their work, but in a sense there is that degree of it. It's like you're taking the stuff and not necessarily crediting the people who did it.
That's the thing, is like, because you can pay Jim Lee to get art lessons from him, but he just doesn't give up for free. So it's kind of the same thing where it's learning to draw like Jim Lee without paying for those art lessons. Also, it's going to be an interesting place because a lot of AR is actively being poisoned, which I'd recommend if you are keeping a digital portfolio as an artist, look into a plugin for your graphics suite called Nightshade, which will actively poison the pixels against AI learning software.
Okay.
Yeah, so what it is because AI analyzes everything through data, it doesn't actually have a visual input. It will adjust the metadata on your art. So we as humans see it and it's unchanged. But when a piece of software goes through and looks at it, ends up reading this corrupted metadata, which shifts the way that pixels are entered and the way that they're colored. So essentially, it's like the Enigma machine. It's feeding false information by just changing the way it's presented.
Interesting.
I do think that one thing that we don't, you did mention it's a productivity booster, right?
Yeah.
I think that one helpful thing about AI and the way that it generates art is, when you first start out as a writer, you don't understand how to communicate certain images to an artist. And so when you can go through and experiment with prompts, right, and get closer to a state to say, this is kind of what I'm looking for. Now, now make the tweaks, right? Make it live. And I think, you're going to have a lot of people who can, that barrier to entry now is kind of removed or is lessened now. So if you're a writer trying to hone, you can get in a little quicker with an artist to explain an idea and not go through the frustration of the artist going, what the heck are you even talking about? You're trying to add these three things that don't even go together, or. So I think it does help in that communication piece between someone who is not an artist and an artist, right?
Yeah. Use it as I mean, that's the thing where like kind of like you're using it to create necessarily the outline, but not the actual finished product.
Yeah. And you don't lose momentum, right? In that way, that you could still maintain momentum in a project, because you can go, okay, I don't want to lose this idea in my mind of what this thing looks like. Chat, whatever, generator AI, you type out this thing, and then it gives you something that's horrible, but roughly what you want. And so you can store that image right there. It's AI generated. I'm going to get a real image of it, but I can actually store that in the document to go, this is what I was thinking at this point, right? And so when I communicate it then to an artist, they have something to base it off of,
Just don't ask the artist to recreate what the AI did.
Yeah. No.
Because the AI probably generated something that was like horrible anyway, right? Like it probably didn't do it justice anyway.
Yeah.
I remember that the Sunday show, they had Tommy and Roland, them were kind of looking at some of the AI stuff, and there was some really interesting results.
Yeah.
People with 3 legs.
Yeah.
That would be a funny competition to give both a real quick prompt, and see what AI comes out with and what the human comes out with.
Right.
Like a really silly prompt or something.
It's like we use it on our like the art collective that we're in. We use AI to make like the most cursed meme images we can to send at each other. So during Hanukkah last year, we my contribution to our community was making a brisket dreidel with a dreidel made out of meat.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, that's interesting.
It looked as terrifying as it sounds.
Yeah.
Look like something out of Hellraiser, yeah.
Wow.
Okay. So we kind of mentioned this earlier, talking about rejection letters, and as a new creative, your teeth, as a veteran creative, your teeth are getting punched in constantly. Your teeth are getting punched in until the day you die. But overcoming rejections and other challenges like that is a it sounds delicious. Thank you, old dirty fatty. Sure. Rejections are the most common letter you're going to get as a creative. So you have different tools and skill sets everyone like talks about. There's a reason why every like self-help book for a creative has a whole section on how to handle rejection. What are some of the skills and tool sets that you guys have found helps in handling rejection and similar professional challenges?
Pillow, a nice comfy blanket, and an early go to bed.
Yeah. The 7 p.m. depression sleep.
I mean, it really is a matter of going into the situation with humility. I mean, I again, it always hurts that you put so much work into it at your level, and you don't get the response that you hope for, right? But I mean, and I don't mean to keep bringing up the fighter analogy, but I mean, when you think about it, right? You don't just in 4 minutes, learn how to jab and then get in the arena and expect like a real coach to take you very seriously. Like they may see potential, they may give you tweaks, right? Like use your hip. Like they may give you some tweaks, right? And you take that and you apply it every time, and every rejection should be like a learning point. And I know that's easy to say, when feelings get involved, it morphs into something else and curse words and stuff. But if you go into it with the perspective that this is a marathon, right? If I'm gonna become a master, it's gonna take the years of being an apprentice, being a journeyman. Like you there are levels to it, right? And you just got to understand you should be ambitious, right, at every level, but realize that you are not at the high level, right? You are trying to get there. So rejection is just going to be a natural thing that happens, right? Until the day that it doesn't, and then you're going to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm in the ring, like I can actually do a thing. So,
yeah. David, what are some of your thoughts?
absolutely.
Yeah. Carlos Alberto Ars. I'm sorry, I'm butchering your last name there. Carlos said you should evolve with every rejection.
Absolutely, yeah.
The hard part is, just trying to, realize that it's not a personal attack.
Mm-hmm.
The end result is you want to try to get something from it and not let it get you down. I know I've been a victim of that myself, of taking it personally too much. But yeah, take as much as you can, kind of break up, what you get and see what you can use, and kind of just discard the other stuff, and learn from it. That's the best I can say, analogy wise.
Yeah. The way I've always handled rejection sounds psychopathic. But it's the way it works, the way I've created my mental shell. And the night you receive the rejection letter, it doesn't matter what they say. You're right. You're the creative. You know what you're doing. They're wrong. They're an editor. They can't cut their teeth as a writer. That's why they're an editor, not a writer. All right? Sleep on that. Come back the next morning. Okay, what did they say and how can I be better? Get your emotions out. Like, be open and honest with your emotions, because it does hurt. It does feel like an attack, and it does suck. So feel those emotions the first night. Don't respond. Do not respond. Just kind of look at the headline of the email, look at the first two sentences, immediately get out all of your rage or whatever it is you're feeling. Do the 6 p.m. depression sleep, whatever you need to do. But then come back to the next day after you've had time to sit on it, understand that it is not a personal attack, that editors have their place, and the reason why they're giving you rejections because it's not because they don't want to work with you. They probably do, but they have to meet the standard for the publication. So they want to make sure that the product they're getting is up to that standard. So they're going to give you notes. A good editor will give you notes. Sometimes, just get a form rejection, and that just means that, it's probably a mismatch between your voice and the publication, and you should be applying to different markets anyway. But if it is the correct match and you should be in that publication, they're going to give you a note saying like, hey, we want this, this, and this next time. And take it as they're giving you a helping hand. They want you to make the next, top selling book on there. Because if you write something that's great and you get paid through them, that means that they're getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
So hiring a voodoo priestess to cure them, their families, is a reaction.
A little bit.
Just a little bit. Yeah. I would say, have I, definitely done the writer thing, or I have just here to do curse. I mean, it just yeah, we got to admit. I've definitely done the writer thing, right, where you get just due to pure bad luck and happenstance, you get 5 rejections on the same night. So you get the bottle of gin, you put on professional wrestling, and you don't leave the living room for like the next day.
That sucks so bad. That's
yeah, like you have gin and sleep for dinner. But understand that if it is a correct match, like if it's a form rejection, As a writer, as an illustrator, that just means that it's the wrong market. You're not meant to be there anyway because your voice is different. It doesn't match their audience, and their audience is not going to like what you have to offer anyway. But if it's the correct audience, they're going to give you notes, and that they want you to come back, be better next time. So, places that give you rejections with the notes, absolutely keep like submitting there because they want you. That's why they're giving you notes. Sometimes they might have rules on like notes about the same thing. So, have several books ready to go at once and then take their notes and apply it to the next book. Sometimes they don't have that. They just want to give you like 3 months as a cooling off period between submissions. And the reason places do that is because those are your revision months. It's not because like, oh, we don't want an influx of, you ruining our time and taking up our time. It's like, no, we're giving you time to make your book up to our standard. Yeah. So take those 3 months, those 6 months, whatever their period is, take their notes to heart, make it the best damn book you can. But yeah, but don't repress your emotions. Be open and honest with them. If it means you're psychopathic for an evening, so be it.
A contained psychopath, though, right?
Don't
go out on the street. Yeah. Don't make phone calls. Don't just stay in that.
That was not the time to call your ex. All right, they moved on.
Maybe jot it down. Maybe make it a base for your next story.
Yeah, there you go. Rage writing. I'm not sure about rage illustrating. Rage writing, stuff like that. I don't know if David has ever had a moment of rage coloring. I don't know.
No!
It's the most vibrant page we've ever seen.
Oh my god.
It's like, what can I do to make people have seizures on this page?
I don't know how they did this, but in this comic book, the page is pulsing.
That's funny.
Oh, okay. And now a little bit of make them a character. I've definitely done that. Maybe not necessarily an editor, but with no, I have done it with an editor. Yeah, I've done that with a few people I had some terrible objections with the work. Yeah. All right, you're dying horribly now. I'm not even changing the name. It's your name. If you can find it, Okay. So our last little bit here, before we wrap up, this is probably going to be the biggest lesson that you need to learn as a starting creative. How do you manage your time and your resources? Because either you're not scheduling enough time to be creative and your book's not getting done, or scheduling too much time, you're getting burnt out, and you are so depressed. And we've done episodes of the podcast before. You can go back and listen on whatever your podcast streaming service of choice is on time management. But a little quick here, like when you're first getting into comics, when you're first getting into doing stuff like this, you don't have a system yet. You don't know how to schedule yourself probably. And you need to learn how to do that. So can you talk about how you first learned to schedule your time, when you first learned how you need to manage your time, manage your productivity? Was kind of the moment that made you realize you need to do that, and what was the first change you made there?
I think the first thing for me is to notice my headspace. Like in the very beginning, you're so motivated to do a thing, right? And that's not a bad thing, right? Like sometimes you're going to, in the beginning, hit the wall, and you have to. So you have to take, at least for me, that's what works for me. I am very humble, and I go, I'm not doing enough. And so I just keep pushing, right? And that makes me get words out, right? That makes me get a page count out. Now, eventually I had to go, okay, dang it, I need to schedule the time, right? And have a goal in that time. So I may go, okay, I know that I want to get an issue out of this comic, right? So how do I break the pages up, in that duration of time? Maybe it's a month that I've given myself. How do I break it up so that I can finish it in that time frame? And then you just have that goal. There's so many days a week you actually write. You have that goal of, okay, I'm hitting this many pages during that time. And then sometimes you'll win. Sometimes life will hit you and you won't, and you have to reschedule a thing, but always schedule a thing. So it got to the point where, after you hit the first burnout thing, you still need to be productive. So you got to take it slower and say, I'm going to raise the quality by focusing on this much in these planned time periods. So that's what works for me. But
yeah,
wow, that's so zen. I'm not sure I've really figured that out. I don't know. I've just, like I said, I go back and forth between day job and move into here and go. And most active thing that I can try and do is try and stop myself from nitpicking all of the all the details.
that's hard though, isn't it though?
Oh, it's very hard. Very, very hard. Because, you're like, well, if you zoom in, at 300%, that penny that's on the ground is probably the best rendered penny you've ever seen. But then when you zoom out to life size, it's like, what penny?
Yeah, exactly.
Writers struggle with that too, though, right? You write a panel and you're like, man, like, dang it, maybe I should describe it this way. And you get stuck in like the same page for so long trying to rewrite that one page. So I can relate to it.
Well, this character say the sentence this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe he should, dang it, he should say it this way. But that way makes it more than 35 words in the panel. So dang it, now I got to rewrite the whole thing. It's so funny. Yeah.
I can, I think about it and just think about how difficult it is for you, because you're not only thinking about what's going on in that, in that panel to do it, but you're also trying to balance what it's going to look like, or how this is going to flow into 16 pages from now, because you're doing the overall picture and fine-tuning the individual pieces. That's something that is pretty tough.
Yeah,
so gotta hand it to you guys.
Yeah, I think that I ended up learning was understanding how to work with your neurotype, like how you are most productive in your own brain space. Are you are you a grazer? Do you do a little bit every day? Or are you a chunker? Do you do like 3 days a week? You do big chunks out of it? Or are you a marathon person where every Saturday, like, all right, 10 pages Saturday morning? That's what we do. Kind of our previous note, like we said, there is I think it's Voltaire who said this. My favorite creative whatever, because it flies in the face of so many ideals of perfectionism and efficiency and productivity, as perfect is the enemy of done. He's like, I think the actual translation, perfect is the enemy of good, but change it to perfect is the enemy of done. The idea of like, if you're striving for perfection, that is not a done book. And a done book is never a perfect book. So understand that your goal is done. It's not perfect. Your goal is done. And if that means like, so budget yourself your rewrites. That's something I have to do, which is a little weird. Like if I get extra notes from the editor, I do them. But I say like I have 2 rewrites on every book. Any more than that, and I have failed. Things like that. But my neurotype, I am a card-carrying ADHD autistic person, which, by the way, getting diagnosed with autism in your late 20s is a wild turn of life. But my brain type, that type of thing, dislikes patterns, but likes sitting down and focusing. So I don't want a pattern, but I need to get it done in one go. So I am a marathon person where Saturday morning we're doing 20 pages.
There you go.
If I try to schedule it out, it's not happening. NaNoWriMo is my worst thing ever. I'm not doing 1,300 words a month. We're doing 3,000 every Saturday. So that is kind of where I found that I sit is And so I've gone through and scheduled out, okay, now my Saturday mornings, I know that I'm writing at this time. And I put my calendar and I protect that writing time because that is working time. Make it part of your work schedule.
Yep.
So if you are a grazer and you like writing, a page or two every day, then, protect that hour after work. This is your writing time. This is your illustrating time. Or, if you're like me and you take like 6 hours on whatever day you're free up and you're like, okay, this is creative time. This is additional work day for me. That's what I found works best for me. So understand how you like to get things done. And this may be a pattern of looking back on how you have done hobbies or things in the past, or like if you work on cars, do you tend to, do a little bit here and there, or do you do it all in one go? And then translate that to your new creative profession and protect that time.
I find with cars, it's usually a lot of how much money you have to be able to do it at that particular time.
Yeah.
That drives how you work on that.
All I know is deadlines are a blessing. Yes. If you have an editor who can give you deadlines, fantastic. If you're working by your own, impose your own deadlines. And those are, and if you can get friends involved on there, like if you were just working on, if you're trying to go the route of getting into Image or TKO or 20K, or 2080, where you need to have a completed book and you haven't done, but you're not on contract yet, so you're just trying to get your pitch book done. Set a date, so many months out or whatever, and then tell your friends and be like, hey, if I'm not done by this day, brass me. Like, make a wager where, like, say like, if you get a book done by this date, then you guys are buying me beer. If I'm not done, then I'm buying you guys beer, something like that. Put some stakes on it.
Be prepared to pay out.
Yes. But do something on there that makes you motivated and makes you want to be honest to that deadline.
And show people your work along the way. I think that helps too, right? Because you kind of build a momentum and you're going, man, I just showed them that. Now I got to deliver on that thing, right? Like, so, yeah.
Also, legal advice. But someone who has been in this industry knows the creative laws around it and stuff like that. And also in like general creative media, working in the industry in my day job, that trademark is like everything. You do not need to hide your product from everyone. In fact, it's better to show it to people.
This is good. This is good to say this. This is really good. This is good. Get it out there. Get it out there.
I don't know why we have gotten this collective brain rot that we think that, like, oh, I'm a writer, or oh, I'm an illustrator, I need to hide my artwork from the world, otherwise it's going to get stolen. One, no one cares, okay? Two, the more people that know your product is out there, the more people who can defend you in court, right? Also, post-stamping yourself, something like mailing yourself your script that is not a nothing. That is not a copyright. That is the only way you can get a copyright is by publishing something, because then you have the right to the copy in the world. You can trademark something by sending it to the U.S. Trademark Office, but mailing yourself something is not anything at all. You do not need to mail yourself something and throw it in your locker under your basement. Show as many people your thing as possible, so people know that's your idea, that you created it around this time frame. And every time
that was very passionate.
I have gotten so many writers. I have a writing email, which, by the way, timtkwriter@gmail.com. If you want writing advice, send me your stuff. I'll look over it. I do $30 for a review, and I give you a day. I'll give you a week to read over everything, then I'll send you notes back on stuff. Yeah. The amount of writers who are like, you can't share this with anyone. This is super secret. This is my passion project. I'm like, you don't understand how this works. Your friends, your mom, your neighbors, the cat at the coffee store down the road needs to know what you're working on.
Cece, your cats need to know what you're working on.
2 of them, they know because they always step on the keyboard.
Yes. I mean, once you get established, that's when you can be protective with your IP and stuff like that, because then people might try to rip you off because you're established and you have a name to protect and stuff like that. If you're some new guy, yeah.
They want to spend their time ripping off the established guys, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
It's going to take a lot for a person to put their work out there anyway mentally, right? So if you keep reserving it, you think that you're going to go, oh, okay, I'm going to reveal this big thing to the world, when really you're going to be scared to do it anyway. You're going to get to this point and you're like, dang it, I don't want people to talk bad about this thing. You need to rip that Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
And put the thing out there to your friends, like, show folks what you're doing. That's how you get better too, because they're gonna be honest and be like, no, that's not it.
Yeah.
Or they're gonna be like, man, that's great, keep going.
A lot of libraries, a lot of local coffee shops, depending on how big your area is, will probably have some form of creative group or writing group or what have you. And if you can join said group and share your script with them and stuff like that, you're going to get feedback, which is great, but also you're going to get, again, on the legal thing, it's better protection to have as many people know that this is your brainchild than not, right? Because if you have created something and you show no one and then something comes up like, oh, they ripped me off. Well, one, how did they rip you off? You need no one ever saw your thing. But 2, how can you prove that if no one can testify that that's your idea? So, that's like, it has been something that has been like every time I get an email from a potential writer that's working on something, and they include something to that effect. That's something that drives me up every wall in my house. I have a lot of pent-up frustration about that particular subject.
That would be great.
Get your cat to,
Yeah.
Slowly. It's you gotta get Salem from Sabrina the Teenage Witch. All right. Kid talking cat. Okay. Well, that's our show on Tuesday. We've been going this for almost 90 minutes now, so that is our time. My rant there at the end about the legalities of
passion.
Yeah.
Your passion.
Yeah.
Trademark and copyright stuff, especially because people I work with don't get it. I'm like, you work in a branding office. How are you not get this? Is there any other notes that you guys wanted to talk about or give before we wrap up for the night?
No, it's a marathon. Just if you choose to do it, go into it wanting to master the craft and get good at it, right? Not necessarily just jumping in hoping for a quick win. Maybe you'll get that, but probability is you won't get it. So just work to be good at it. Go in, enjoy the process of getting better, telling good stories.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, that has been Social on Tuesday. Thank you for listening live. If you've been live, thank you for chatting. Those who've been chatting. If you listen to us after the fact on your podcast service of choice, please go ahead, give us a review, give us a share or comment, whatever you want to do. Everything helps. We'll be back next week, 8 p.m. Pacific, for a game night. This is going to be us playing Jackbox games. So you get to see us draw live and do a bunch of funny stuff and try to draw live. I've been practicing. My lines are 75% straighter than they were.
That's a win.
Yeah.
Why do I feel scared now?
Good. But we'll be having a bunch of laughs for that 90 minutes. Make sure to check out Wednesday Wham and Silver Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on those respective days. Thank you all who have been live at the time. I will see you next Tuesday. that is it. We have no end of show housekeeping, so we'll see you all next week. But until that time,
wait,
make mine Silverline.
Make mine Silverline.
Hi, my name is Paul Kupperberg. Make mine Silverline.